units or measurements, we discussed about significant figures as well as the how to rounding off by doing the addition and subtraction and multiplication. We discussed about that matter. Now we are going to discuss about what is units. And unit is nothing but it's a term which is used for the fixed quantity, means it's a standard and fixed amount of quantity in terms which the similar quantities are measured. Means if we want to take any quantity for certain amount of quantity, then we should need some of the amount of means unit is there. That is a fixed and standard quantity which can be in terms of which the similar quantities are measured. So in that case, what is meant by the, first of all we should know what is physical quantity. Physical quantity means is nothing but the quantity which can be measurable is called a fundamental, or it's a physical quantity. The quantity which can be measured is called a physical quantity. That physical quantity can be measured in terms of can be classified into the two types of physical quantities are there. In that one, the first one is a fundamental physical quantity. That is fundamental physical quantity. The quantity which does not depend on any other quantity, like directly we can measure that quantity. Directly we can measure the quantity in terms of without any helping of another quantity is called as a fundamental physical quantity, and this fundamental physical quantity also called as a base quantity. It is also called as a base quantity. It's a base quantity. Fundamental physical quantity is also called as a base quantity, and as well as the fundamental quantities can be measured by using the some of the units. So those are called fundamental units. The units which are measured the physical quantities, fundamental physical quantities are called here we can say that fundamental unit. Means here first of all fundamental quantities which can be measurable directly, means if you want to find out the example length, mass, time and temperature. If you want to find the length of some of the physical quantity, we can take directly the length. And as well as if we want to find the mass, if we want to go to grocery shop, if we want to buy something in some of the quantity, then mass, then we can directly measurable. Means it does not depend on another physical quantity like length, mass or time. The length does not depend on another quantities, and mass is also does not depend on another quantities, and time is also we can be measured directly, and temperature is also we can measure directly. So these quantities are called fundamental physical quantities. Mass, length, time, this type of these quantities are called as a fundamental physical quantities, because of these quantities does not depend on another quantities. And another one is to measure these physical quantities, there is some unit required, standard and fixed amount of physical quantity, some units are required, so that here the unit is used to measure the fundamental physical quantities are called the unit which is used to measure the fundamental physical quantities are called fundamental units. Those are fundamental units, and also called as, it is also called as a base unit. Means it is the base for all units to measure that. By using these units we can measure the different type of physical quantities. Means here the length is having the its unit is a meter, and mass can be measured in kilograms, and time can be measured in seconds here. So the length can be measured in meters, and mass in kgs, and time in seconds. So this is about fundamental units. And another type of physical quantities those are derived physical quantities. Derived physical quantities. What is meant by the derived physical quantities? The physical quantities which is by using the fundamental quantities. If we express the quantities by using the fundamental quantities are called derived quantities, also called as the depends on another physical quantities. Means like the derived quantities, the physical quantity that can be derived from the fundamental quantity physical quantities are called here the derived quantities. Derived quantities means that those physical quantities which is derived from the fundamental physical quantities are called here derived quantities. For example, area, density, and different type of physical quantities are there other than this length, mass, time and temperature. The The remaining terms which are having that quantities are all are the derived quantities. Because of these quantities will depends on fundamental quantities. These derived physical quantities depends on the fundamental quantities by using the fundamental quantities which can be derived. So that here the unit means that the quantities of a derived physical quantity are called as a derived unit. For example, area, here we are giving the some of examples, so one or two examples. So derived quantities are area, density and force, etc. And as well as the units for this physical quantities are, area is having meter. Meter means meter into meter, means meter is also one of the length and another one of the length. It is depends on the two lengths, means two fundamental physical quantities which require two fundamental physical quantities, not one fundamental physical quantity. It requires two fundamental physical quantities to measure area. And density, we know that density which can be derived from rho is equal to m by v, means mass by volume. It requires mass and as well as its require volume also. So that here density having that is units are a kilogram per meter cube. Mass can be kilogram which can be measured directly. It is the fundamental physical quantity and fundamental unit. And volume, that is meter cube. Volume requires three lengths, means length into width into height, that is m cube. M cube means m is the length and at the same time m into m. So we can say here the three lengths which is required to measure the fundamental physical quantities are required to measure the density. So that this density will depends on the fundamental units. The density units depends on the fundamental units. So that's why it is a derived quantity. And also force which is having the Newton, that means kilogram meter per second square. Here is also these are the fundamental physical quantities, means the force units of force also depends on the fundamental units. And here momentum is kilogram meter per second. Here kilogram meter per second. These three are the physical fundamental units. This is also the units which is require more than one. Those are the derived. These quantities which depends on the derived units depends on the fundamental units. So that's why we can say the unit of derived quantities means the physical quantity that can be derived from the fundamental physical quantities are called derived quantities, and the units are the unit of derived quantity is called as derived units. And the examples, so there is a system of units are there. For the different system of units are there. In the case of the system of units are CGS system, also this is called as a French system, and at the same time or it's a metric system. The three names are there: CGS system or French system or a metric system. And the next one is FPS system. FPS system is the British, or it is also called as a British system, and MKS system. So these another one is also there. Total 4 types of are there. Another one is SI systems. SI system means International System of Units. Mostly probably nowadays we are total in that wherever we go we use the SI, International System of Units only. Though so SI system or system of units are 4 types of are there. In that case the first one is CGS, and second one is FPS, and third one is MKS, and fourth one is SI system. And the another one is SI system. SI system means International System of Units. International System of Units. Some of the here we have the some of the examples for that. What is the fundamental physical quantities which is have in the SI systems? That is, these are the length, mass, time is the fundamental quantities, and the units of that fundamental physical quantities. Let's see in a different type of system of units. Those are in CGS system. The length is having centimeter, and G means gram, it is a mass, and S means second, that is in time. Means the fundamental physical quantities which can be derived in a centimeter, gram, second, that is CGS system or French system or metric system. And the next one is MKS, meter, kilogram, second. And FPS means foot, pound, second. So these are the fundamental physical quantities. Length can be measured in FPS system is foot, and MK system is meter, and CGS system is centimeter. And mass can be expressed in the system of units are in CGS system is gram, and MK system is kilogram, and FPS system is pound. And the time in all the system of units, time can be measured in seconds. So these are the system of units. And one more thing is the mass, length, time is sufficient to express the units or physical quantities in mechanics. But if we come for the electricity and magnetism and as well as heat light, it is not sufficient to express the fundamental physical quantities. The 3 mass, length, time is not sufficient to. So we should add some fundamental physical quantities. Some of the scientists are added some physical quantities, some of the fundamental physical quantities. These are here some another fundamental units for the fundamental quantities. Those are electric current. In the case of electric current can be measured in ampere, and the thermodynamical temperature. Temperature is also fundamental units which can be measured directly, that is K in kelvins. And the intensity of light, intensity of light can be measured in candela, that is denotes with Ca. And the quantity of matter, if we take the matter in quantity is some of the moles, that is MOL, we can express in MOL, that is mole, candela, Kelvin and ampere. So that in that case of some of the supplementary quantities also there, complementary quantities are plane angle and solid angle is considered as the supplementary angles. This plane angle can be considered in radians and solid angle can be expressed in steradians. Solid angle in steradian and plane angle in radians. So these are about some of the units and different type of units and physical quantities and different type of physical quantities. How do we express in a system of units also? We need a system of units for the expressing the more quantities in derived quantities. So that system of units CGS, FPS, MKS and different another some of the fundamental physical quantities which are added to express in terms of magnetism, in terms of light, heat and electricity. So this is about next we are going to discuss about the uses of system, means what is the use of SI systems. Most probably nowadays we are using in all the cases the SI systems, international system of units. So the uses of SI units and what is the rules to write the system of units, international system of units.